3.
I'm a 5-foot, 32-year-old female. This happened back in 2011. I live in a small university town in the Midwest, and back when I came to live here in 2008, it was a fairly safe place. Not so much these days. Being an international student, I did not own a car until 2012. As such, I used to bike to and from my house to school. The place that I lived at was a nice house in a nice neighborhood, quite close to the school. It was about 15 minutes walking distance from school and about 7 to 9 minutes by bike. I lived with 2 American roommates who were married and had just had a baby. My female roommate's mother was over to visit them. I would bike to and from school quite often, even at odd hours, all the way up until 10 at night. I didn't think it was unsafe to do so. As an Indian from a big city, the lack of people on the streets in America has always creeped me out, but I've gotten used to it. This evening, I had gone to attend a symposium about women's empowerment and experiences of women, taking place at the school library. The symposium ended at 7 p.m, so I took my bike and started biking home. I noticed that I passed a 40-ish looking African American man on a bike. As I rode straight, he rode on the road that was at a perpendicular angle. He had a helmet on and a headlight on his bike. I was busy thinking about the symposium and happily biking away. As he passes me by, he flashes the largest grin I've ever seen. In India, we call this a 1,000-watt smile. I could literally see all of his front teeth, and it sort of looked creepier because they were sparkling white in contrast with his dark skin. I'm not trying to be racist, I'm just telling you how I saw it from my perspective. It creeped me out a bit, but I smiled back at him, hesitantly, and continued on my way. Suddenly, I noticed that he made a U-turn and started biking towards me. Having lived in India, my creep radar is pretty strong, and as soon as he did that, I got creeped out. My house was only 3 streets down, but I suddenly started biking really fast. Something about him just didn't seem right. I don't think I've ever biked that fast in my entire life. I noticed that he did not anticipate that. In fact, I went so fast that he didn't see me going into my house. The house that we lived in, it had a big garage right beside the house. Between the garage and the house, there was a door that went back into the backyard. We stored our bikes in that space. I opened the door as fast as I could with my shaking hands and went straight in. There was no light in the area, and I just stood in the dark with my bike. And then I saw a light coming down the street. I thought it was a car headlight, so I was going to close the door because I didn't want him to notice it open and realize where I lived. But I was too scared to move, so I just stood there with my heart in my mouth. And as I suspected, what I thought was a car headlight was his bike headlight. He went biking past my house, craning his neck to see if I was anywhere. He noticed the open side door and sort of tried to look carefully to see if he saw me. I don't think he saw me because it was pitch dark. He continued biking while craning his neck, looking for me. As soon as he went past the house, I dumped the bike, pulled out my keys and entered through the side door into our kitchen. My roommate's mother, who was in the kitchen, looked up at me to say hi, and as soon as she saw my face, she said, "What's wrong?" My heart was pounding and I was wheezing from having biked so fast. I told her that someone was following me and I biked super fast and he just passed by the house looking for me while I hid. She yelled for my roommate and he ran out to see if anyone was still outside the house. But the man, he was gone. I haven't seen him since, and maybe his intentions weren't that bad after all, but for some reason, he just scared the living daylights out of me.
Number 2.
This happened when I was a freshman in college and still living in my mum's house. There's a forest preserve a few miles from our house, so my mum and I decided to drive over and take the dogs for a long walk and enjoy the sunshine. The forest preserve has a path to follow for joggers, but also has a lot of open space, hills, tall grass, and trees where it's possible to go off the path and walk in more secluded area. Our dogs like to wander and aren't the friendliest with other dogs, so we usually go off the main walking trail to try and avoid other people. It was a nice summer day outside and most people were sticking to the designated trail, so soon my mum and we were alone and enjoying the peace and quiet. There was another man walking his large husky off the path too, but we tried to keep our distance from him because of his dog. My mum and I were talking when we heard a rustling sound a ways to the side of the path in the tall grass. I'm holding one dog and she's holding the other, and we tried to pull in the retractable leashes to keep them closer, just in case there's an animal. We keep walking when one of the dogs lets out a growl, as there's more rustling sounds coming from the tall grass. All of a sudden, the man with the husky starts shouting a ways behind us and coming towards us quickly, waving his arms and pointing into the grass. My mum and I are startled by this man and on our guard, but all of a sudden, two males wearing grass suits start running in the opposite direction away from us, and the man with the husky towards the trees. Needless to say, they scared the living shit out of us, and when the husky guy caught up to us, he said that he saw them sneaking into the tall grass and trying to camouflage themselves. He also told us that some unfriendly homeless people live in the forest, and it's not the safest place to be alone as two females. My mum thanked him for getting our attention, and we ran back to our car pretty quickly. We didn't report what happened, as the two guys, they never really did anything, but we never went back. I just have to wonder why they were camouflaged like that in a public forest preserve of all places. I'm thankful that the husky guy saw what they were up to, as I don't know what their intentions could have been.
Number 1.
Growing up, I had a lot of fun experiences with sneaking out of the house. My house was 3 floors, a finished basement, a middle floor, and a top floor where all the bedrooms were. When I had friends over, we all slept in the finished basement. It was a mutual agreement between my parents and I. They got to sleep without hearing a peep, and we got to be as loud as we wanted to be. The best part about the basement was the fact that it had a sliding door to go in and out of. Now, anyone with sliding doors knows that most of them are completely silent when opening and closing. This led to at least 50 plus instances between the ages of 13 and 16 where a group of friends and I would sneak out to go meet up with girls who lived further down the road. Up until this point though, I had never snuck out on my own. It wasn't from a fear of sneaking out on my own. It just was always prearranged that when the girls down the street would have a sleepover, the boys would have a sleepover at my house. There just wasn't really ever a reason for me to go out alone. However, I was talking to this one girl who lived a little further down the road, and she wanted me to come over and hang out, as teenagers do. So, unconcerned, I headed out into the summer night at around 1 o'clock in the morning. The route to get to this girl's house was on the same route as the other house we would always go to, so I was completely familiar with my surroundings. It was a pretty active suburban neighborhood, so even at hours that late, you'd have cars driving around. As a teenager, you didn't particularly want to be seen walking on the side of the road that late at night, so if I heard a car coming or saw headlights, you would duck into the woods or dive into the nearest bushes you could find. But there was always one nightmarish stretch of road where there is neither a lot of woods or houses on either side. And if you don't get through that part before a car comes, you're pretty much fucked. My friends and I, being the nerds we are, we named it Diagon Alley. So cutting to me now, happily as humanly possible on my way to potentially get laid for the first time, walking through Diagon Alley, not paying any attention. All of a sudden, a car comes, approaching quickly, and I run and hide into the woods behind a group of trees that was hardly covering me. 99% of the time, the cars just go zooming by, either not seeing you or seeing you but not caring enough to do anything about it. This car though, stopped in front of the house that was across the street from me. Not totally out of the ordinary yet. Maybe they lived there. At this point, I didn't think they saw me yet. After sitting there for 15 to 30 seconds, the car drove by and took a left. The reason the direction the car turned matters is because Diagon Alley was a part of a large circular neighborhood of houses. Where this strange car took a left would eventually loop the person right back to my location. Knowing this and not wanting to be caught in the street, I stayed in my position, and sure enough, no more than a minute later, the car came back. This time when it parked though, it shined its headlights directly at me. I stood there in complete fear, not knowing what to do. A minute passes with the headlights on me, and the car proceeds to turn left and go around the circle again. Now I'm thinking that it's time to make my way out of the woods and get the fuck out of here. But as I'm on the edge of the woods, about to hit the road, I hear the car coming and duck back into the woods, trying to find the best spot I can to hide. This time, the car parks in the same spot as the first time it approached. The driver sat there for what felt like 10 to 15 minutes, and I was frozen like ice, paralyzed with fear. The engines turn off, and I hear the car door open. This is where the frozen with fear thing subsides and flight or fight mode sets in. I booked it out of the woods, down the street as fast as I've ever run before. Instead of pursuing me on foot though, the person hopped back into the car and tried to chase me that way. Luckily, I ran up and over a hill and immediately ducked into a driveway and rolled underneath a car that was parked a little out of eyeshot. The act of me going over the hill caused me to be out of sight long enough for the person to lose my position completely. For the driver, that wasn't the end though. They weren't satisfied. The car drove around the big circular road for 45 minutes looking for me, just going around and around very slowly. Finally, the car eventually disappeared. I waited an additional 15 to 20 minutes to make sure that the car wasn't just trying to bait me out, and I took a completely different way back home. I only told my guy friends who used to sneak out with me about it. Never my parents and never any of the girls. Nobody. My friends thought it could have been the police, but there is no way that's the case. They would have flicked the lights on, yelled at me that I was breaking the law or something like that. Confirmation came when there was an abduction attempt no more than 2 weeks later in a neighborhood adjacent to mine. Who's to say what would have happened? I was a big kid at 16, 5'11" and 185, so maybe if he or she did get a hold of me, I could have fended them off. Honestly though, I'm just glad that it never got to that point. Needless to say, I avoided Diagon Alley like the plague for at least a few months.
G'day mates, it's be.busta here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their stories for us all here, and I hope you're all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always, keep them coming guys, as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favor and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent, just so that I can be above board with everything. And also remember to tell me in the email if you would like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for always tuning in guys, for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.